This is sort of public info session for the first time. Thank you everyone for signing up and attending tonight. I'm going to start out by giving an introduction about myself. Some trusted friends on the island suggested I give a broader introduction and talk about some of my accomplishments, specifically how they relate to my experiences that make me qualified for this project. Also need to clarify some of my qualifications. I hear there's a rumor going around that this whole thing is a scam, and I can tell you that's the farthest thing from the truth. It's a very exciting project. This is about the only part of the presentation you're going to see me look down at notes because I don't usually spend time talking about myself. Bringing fiber to the island is definitely a hard project, but it's something I have the experience to do. I've been an island owner since 2015. I now own 2 homes on the island. My wife has been coming here for over 30 years. I've served as the town's volunteer IT director since 2015. And I want to point that out to simply show you some of my experiences managing similar projects. I've created the town-wide email list, deployed all the audio video conferencing you see used throughout the town meetings. I moved all the town employees to Google Suites. I built and deployed a new town website. The town employees can update, even though it's not pretty, get the public documents out there in real time. I got the skills to solve technology problems. And I manage and contract out those IT projects, writing RFPs for the town, things you use every day that we depend on the town. I've been responsible for either overhauling or maintaining for the last 5 years. From the ferry ticketing system, we did a major overhaul of that software. We've moved to use iPhones for that. We integrated My Account Plus. You haven't seen it yet, but we actually can take credit cards at the ferry, which will roll out this summer soon. I've done things from building the network at the town hall, the PBX systems. I partner with other institutions where it makes sense. I moved a lot of our IT to Cumberland County, moving our Trio hosting. Our town manager used a laptop supported by Cumberland County. I deployed mesh Wi-Fi networks at all his town facilities. I've got the skills to execute the technology projects myself, but I try whenever possible to contract them out to a qualified vendor. And I always keep a clear separation between the town functions and my personal usage. My day job, which does keep me pretty busy, I'm the global director of engineering with 15 years at IBM. And then when that division was sold, I now have that role at HCL. I manage hundreds of software engineers worldwide on software product that has $100 million of revenue, hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue each year. Basically what I do is I build teams, I execute and deliver. I manage IT transitions, entire data center moves, contractor hiring, vendor selection. I manage complex software development and technology projects every day. And when I need expertise that I don't have, I hire qualified experts to do that work. And that's the same methodology that I'll use on this project. So enough about me, let's get to the real presentation. So tonight we're going to cover background on internet service on the island today. We're going to talk about that problem and define it, and what we've done in the past to address it, and what is fiber to the home. Second, I'm going to introduce you guys to Sebago Fiber Wi-Fi LLC. We're going to make an announcement, talk about speeds, pricing, and phases, and then we'll close out with the call to action for the island homeowners. So this picture sort of defines the high-level problem of reliability of internet on the island I think most of you are used to. 68% of the homes on the island don't have broadband internet, which is defined by the FCC as 25 down and 3 up. The picture on the left is the current consolidated network of how DSL works. And the way DSL works with copper is the distance you are from those little blue dots on the left determines how fast and how reliable your speed is. Portions of the island only get 10.1. Most of you at best get 25. It's not a very fast connection, but we have a bigger problem than that. There's a maximum of 320 homes out of 539 homes on the island that can get service this summer. That leaves 219 homes without the ability to get service, and that's because Consolidated has run out of DSL ports, and that we had a wait list throughout all of 2020. On the right, you'll see a sort of a drawing analyzing that picture on the left, show where are the areas that have some of the worst internet service on the island because they're just too far away on that copper network. But if you're lucky enough to get service, that's not where the problem ends. So you look at the reliability, and one of the things throughout this, I'll focus on reliability of the system the town needs, and the reliability of what you need in your home. Consolidated's internet, it's async DSL. If you're past that 3,000 feet, it just doesn't work well. It has limited uplink bandwidth. That's what causes your Zoom meetings not to work well. And specifically, they have no backup power through DSL nodes on the island. What that means, when you combine that with an unreliable power system on the island that's aging, we get over 70 voltage dips in a 30-day period. And that's the graph you see on the right here, during one day is the power fluctuates, and every time the power fluctuates, it causes, the voltage drops cause the DSL nodes to reset, and the routers require a reboot. So that leaves people unable to work from the island. And another example of that is the town tried a Zoom meeting last summer during COVID, 100 plus participants. We ran out of bandwidth with video on. Sure, Tim. So I'll clarify again, repeat this, as Tim had just asked. There's currently on the island, there's a limited number of DSL ports. There's 320 ports available, okay? And those 320 ports are distributed between these 3 blue nodes, okay? And that creates the macro problem. There's just not enough capacity for people to get internet access. And by the way, I'm going to try to go through this. If someone feels I jumped too fast or something, please use the chat. So the specific detail here, to resume, is we have this problem for reliability. I'm going to talk for you a second of some of the efforts I've done as a town's IT director. And then from here on the presentation, I'm going to be clearly talking to you only from the point of view of Sebago, fiber, and Wi-Fi. So I've done a lot of efforts in the past working with the incumbent ISP. I've spent 6+ years working with them to try to improve the reliability. We've requested consolidate add battery backup. We've offered them access to town generators. I've worked on every single DSL line the town has to try to get them to work reliably. But since 2017, most people don't know this, but the town offices run on a wireless backhaul that I personally built that goes off the island, that goes to a direct connection to fiber. That provides service to the town office in the center. And now, as of last summer, we had so many problems with the copper phone lines, we had to switch the golf card, credit card processing over to use that same backhaul. And a backhaul is a link from the island off the island. Just to give you statistics, because I don't make this up, we can actually measure this. We have what's called a redundant failover router. It picks DSL or it picks the wireless link that I built off the island. That selects the wireless link that I built 95% of the time. So when you see a town meeting or you see the town manager sending out an email and the island's without power and without internet, it's because they're using that backhaul that I built. So my conclusion at this point is there's no clear investment being made by the incumbent corporations on our small island. And if we want this to get better, we or an individual or a company has to take the initiative. So let's talk about that. The solution, I believe, is a fiber to the home network. While DSL averages about 20 megabits per second, fiber to the home network is about 5 times faster at 100 megabits per second. Specifically, I'm talking about a gigabit passive optical network, and I'll try to get through the geeky part here quickly. That its passive is important because it means it's more reliable. It's more reliable because there's no power need. You don't need power at 3 points on the island, okay? So that fiber supports speeds from 75 megabits per second to 1 gigabit per second. And that's with today's technology. You can update that electronics with more expensive electronics, and you can get support for that same fiber up to 10 gigabits per second. So this is really future-proof. It'll work today, and it'll work in the future. So let me talk to you a little bit just about the complexity or the cost here. An industry average cost from 2009, and I'm citing these numbers, these are published numbers. They're not internal or confidential to any company, but the 2009, it costs about $1,200 per premise you go by to build a network. That doesn't include lighting it up or connecting it. There are less dense areas, rural areas. Those are even more costly than $1,200 per home to pass because the poles are farther apart. You've got to put more fiber for less homes. It costs about $800 per premise to connect them. To connect means that the final connection to the house, light it up, give them service. And in all cases here, Fry Island is more expensive than these 2009 numbers because of the time difference, but also because of our location and other aspects. I'm going to point out 2 different architectures for fiber to the home on the left. The first one on the top here is what we refer to as aerial. This is using the telephone poles built by the power company to provide service to the homes. The second method is ground-based or buried, where you use conduit in the ground to carry the fiber cables. In both these cases, there's no electricity. That fiber is completely safe. It can't hurt anyone. It carries light through it, which is extremely reliable. So if you have a fiber to the home network, there's huge benefits when you look at this from Fry Island's point of view. It enables the next generation of TV. We all know there's no cable provider. Dish and satellite's not really reliable with all the trees. So streaming television is really the way to go, and fiber is the best way to deliver that. Telehealth solutions. With better connectivity, we can provide better services to our people on the island in this pandemic and in future issues. And the last thing is, when you do have to do work and remote work, you want it to be reliable. You want to be able to depend on it so you can spend your time on Fry Island. So let me talk about the company I put together to do this. So I've talked about myself. A big part of what I'm proposing to do here from Sebago Fiber Wi-Fi LLC is I'm going to leverage the expertise of an expert in this field. So Tilson Technology Management, it's based in Portland, Maine. They are the primary contractor for Sebago Fiber and Wi-Fi LLC. They're basically one of the top companies building fiber networks around the country. They have 550 employees in 23 locations. They've been recognized growing year after year in network deployment. They build fiber to the home networks. I found them because they built a similar project on Islesboro in Maine. And they're currently licensed to do work in 49 states building fiber networks. So please go check out tilsontech.com if you want to learn more about the company I'm leveraging. But Tilson's the company to be building this network with me. I'll cover in the next slides where I've been working with them over the last few months and how they support this project, what we've done to date. And third, I want to thank Mike Anson, who's going to be the Island Support Manager. I need somebody available who's literally can manage, keeping your support a golf cart away. And Mike's great at getting young people involved. And we believe high school and college kids have the right skills here to do the on-island support. So you're not waiting a month or a week to get an appointment with somebody to show up. We will have additional backup expertise. I will handle the network operations, and we'll have additional contractors. But you're not going to see me or Mike climbing on poles or running wires. We've got contractors to do that, to build the core network on the poles. And we'll talk later about that and how it's a highly regulated activity. So the company I've created is a local company built to serve Fry Island. Its goal is to provide reliable internet to the whole island. The key progress to date, which I'll show you in detail in the next few slides. In fall of 2020, I incorporated this company. I also did a pole survey. We had Tilson come out and do a pole survey of every pole on the island and to figure out what the conditions are, because we're going to leverage those poles. To the question from the audience, we'll talk, that's the next point actually. So the other thing I did in fall of 2020 is we built out a fiber link to the island. Okay, this is up and running already. It's providing great service and it's reliable. Okay, so that's in place. It's been running since last fall. To give you an idea of how long that took, it took 2 years to get pricing from the company to do that. It took 9 months to then order and get it delivered. Okay, it is not trivial. It is not cheap. But we have a fiber backhaul to the island that we can depend on, and we're not going to depend on a single one. Okay, we can go to multiple vendors now that we have the fiber in place to get different ISPs and provide reliability, and we'll continue to use wireless backhaul off the island for critical services like I've built for the town. The other thing we did in fall of 2020 is we built out phase 0 to about 50%, put the conduit in for about 2 of the 4 nodes that we'll talk about for phase 0, and that's a ground-based phase. Since then, basically from January on, I've been very busy, primarily working with Tilson. We did a full high-level design of internet to cover the whole island. I'll show you on the next slide. And then we did full cost modeling. And then we also have started submitting a pole attachment license. I submitted this to the Maine Public Utility Commission, and we expect that to be approved shortly, which is the license to let us start the process of negotiating to attach the poles. So question from the audience, what is a backhaul? And I probably should remove this. So back from the slide, a backhaul is a link from the network on the island to a bigger ISP to the internet, is a backhaul. It hauls our traffic to the larger internet. And that's one of the key things to have in place. And honestly, is one of the reasons that we've been waiting for this to be done, is getting all these different pieces in place. So it's not been really a goal to keep this secret, but there are so many moving variables that literally last week was the first time we had enough confidence to start discussing this publicly. Before that, there are too many risks and other variables, and there's still some risks on timeline we'll talk about a little later. So just to recap, March, we finished a high-level design, cost modeling, and then we currently have our application to Maine Public Utility Commission for that pole attachment license, which then starts the process. So this is an actual rendering of the high-level design for the island. It covers all the current and future residences. This is very important to us, that it covers everything. So I studied all the existing lots and records to make sure that if there's a lot that's buildable, we could provide service to it in the design. I also reached out to the town to ask the town manager every current and future facility he might want internet at. This is a big problem with the current service on the island. There's no service that's reliable to the town center where all of our key facilities are. So we wanted to solve that from the start. And to be honest, I want to stop running around and dealing with internet failing all over the island. This network's built to deliver 75 to 1 gigabit per second today, and it's upgradable for the future. We're also making an investment to make the network more ringable, close some loops so there's multiple paths to every place, so that if there was a failure or a break, which is very unlikely in fiber, the fiber is protected by a metal strand, and then the fiber has strength members. Very unlikely it breaks. You'll see that the fiber always holds up. It's holding the tree up usually. But when that does happen, if we have a break, we want the outage to be as small as possible. So by making the network ringable, we've reduced that. One of the key benefits of this project is the investment by my company will result in the island pole infrastructure getting upgraded, which means there'll be a lot of poles that are broken and damaged to get replaced that prevent these large power outages and damage in the future. So what we're talking about for the majority of the island is an aerial fiber network. That's the top half of this drawing. Fiber itself, super reliable, low maintenance. The speed and latency of that network is not impacted by distance, up to about 20 kilometers in the technology that we're using. So it doesn't matter if you're down by the marina at the south or you're at the ferry landing, you're gonna get the same speed. Also really important, fiber is not impacted by rain, weather, like copper DSL or satellite today. Fiber is extremely rugged. It has a minimum lifespan of 30 years. Part of this service is we are going to be running new fiber distribution cables, okay? They're not on the top of the poles, they're actually lower than this drawing. And then there will be new drops to the home. So there'll be a new service drop to your home following the existing path. And it will come in and plug into this little Wi-Fi port, or sorry, fiber port right here. This device provides Wi-Fi, it gives you 4 gigabit Ethernet ports, and that's basically how it works. So I'm going to talk a little bit, the big question people have been asking me is, what's the speed and what's the price? So we're going to get to that in just a second. The thing about bandwidth is the real problem, I thought this was summarized really well the other day by an islander, is we can't watch Netflix during the day in our house when my son and daughter is working without breaking their Zoom call. That's an exact cause by the uplink bandwidth being limited. So similarly, the town can't use a Zoom meeting. So on the right, just some reference speeds that are there for your TV streaming from 5 to 25 megabits, Hulu's from 3 to 16. So keep those in mind if you're trying to use that. So this is the speed of the service we're talking about offering. We're going to offer fiber service starting at 75 megabits per second down and 75 megabits per second up, which is symmetric, meaning that uplink and downlink are the same. So it works really well if you've got to do those Zoom meetings or work from home. This is totally a different class of product than what is being delivered today for DSL. Our cheapest, lowest service is faster than the fastest service that Consolidated can deliver on the island today at 5020, which is only literally within 1,000 feet of the DSL node, okay? So it's way faster. It's really a premium product, but we believe it's the town, what homes need with the way things are growing. The other thing I want to mention before pricing is there's another important aspect of performance. And what I've done all winter is I've left the fiber system and I kept paying for a Consolidated 3010 DSL modem sitting side by side in the same house. And we've been measuring that performance all winter. And given this is the best case, there's no one on the island using the DSL system. The fiber itself has half the latency, and latency is the time when you click on that web page till you get a response from the server. It's sort of round trip time. The latency is half that of the DSL system is. Furthermore, if you look at what's called jitter, which is when you're on a Zoom or an audio call and you hear that whole distortion where it sort of goes in and out, that's jitter on the line, which is the latency varying up and down, and the software has problem doing the conversion in real time and keeping your audio sounding smooth. And the jitter is 5.6 times worse on DSL, and that's under no load today. So Patricia just had a question. I will answer that because I probably should have covered that better. So who's going to fix the fiber break? So we're going to leverage Tilson to do the build out of the network. We'll also have contracts in place to do those repairs on the main fiber lines. The drop lines, the homes, if those come down, are very easy to replace. So this isn't a big problem. It's commonly dealt with in the industry, but it's no different than today. And we're going to leverage that. Simple things we'll be able to resolve on island. Major things we'll bring a contractor in, but I wouldn't worry, or that's not my concern in any way. The reliability of the fiber to start with deals with a lot of that, and the chance of that cable breaking, if you look at some of the data of how strong they are, it's going to have to be a very big tree. So I covered performance. These numbers only get worse when there are people on the island. This is sort of the best case. And one thing of note, I've been asked about, the fiber network we're building is separate from the DSL. So as people move on to this new network from Sebago Fiber, the DSL service will get a little bit better. Other benefit is that as people move on to Sebago Fiber, there will free up some ports for people to get service from Consolidated who can't get service today. So here's the slide people have been waiting for. So we're going to do very transparent pricing. Our pricing is going to be on the web. There's no additional fees. There's no prices for Wi-Fi or the router. That's included. The speeds are symmetric upload and download speeds. And the basic pricing is simple. We're offering a 75 megabit per second down, 75 megabyte per second up for $75 per month. And that's an annual service, and I'll talk about why in a second. There is a one-time connect fee of $4.99 per home. Or you can choose zero connect fee, and you can do a 3-year contract for $89 per month. That's your choice. Of course, there's applicable main service provider and connect main fund taxes that apply to that. So let me break down some of these, the two big things I sort of threw out there in that pricing. Is we are talking about an annual agreement. We're not talking about turning it on or off seasonally. And that's because of really turning things on and off mid-season is extremely expensive. Having a truck roll out here, turn things on, turn off, debugging. The island's very small from the point of view of the internet service provider. That's why Consolidated, no one else has really been interested in coming here. So to make things work, we have to be at a certain scale, a number of people, and we want to do things in batches. If we have to send somebody out there in a truck every time individually, it will never work. So we're doing annual service contracts. We're going to require enrollment and auto pay on the online web portal, which will be very easy, straightforward to use. Installs are going to occur at the beginning of each year only. Middle of the season, we're not going to do an install. So you need to plan ahead. The other thing is to look at that install fee. Why do we need to do that? It's because you look at the cost to build out. It's the cost to do the aerial fiber cost and the connection, lighting it up. When you add all that up, it's between $2,000 and $2,800 per home. So that connect fee is a small portion of offsetting that capital expense, or you can do the contract. So the monthly fee does include the router. So very simple pricing. And this is, if you want to take a picture, this is the slide to take a picture of right now. $75 a month, 75. It's a 12-month contract, or choose the zero down for 3 years. So we're going to compare how this does in performance and cost for you. Because as I said, we're going to be transparent and clear on pricing. So we're going to call this the Dave scenario. And this is comparing what the sort of best service most people on the island can get, which is if you're somewhere on the middle sort of section of the island, you're probably best going to get 20 down, 5 up in DSL. The base service we're going to offer is 3.7 times the download speed and 15 times the upload speed. Okay. When you look at that cost on an annual basis, if you're keeping your DSL on all winter, the annual cost for DSL, it's around $982. We're pricing our offering to be competitive if you want to keep it on for the full year, so it'll be about $900. Okay. Obviously, if you want to turn things on and off, you can still save DSL, and DSL will be cheaper. But they're a different class of products at this point. Okay. This is a totally different speed of service. And if you want the reliability and you want the additional bandwidth, the product does cost more if you don't value using it in the winter. If you look at our costs over 3 years, including that install fee, we're pretty competitive in this respect. And I'll show you some other scenarios in a second. Are there any penalties for canceling? Yes, there's a contract with a period for canceling. Basically, would make it so you don't cancel. We really need people to be predicting. One thing that will happen is, if someone sells a house, we're structuring things so the service goes with the house. Okay. So if you're selling the house to somebody and you've already paid for that season's internet, you work it out with the buyer through your realtor to say, yep, it already has internet prepaid for the next 12 or 24 months. And yes, Jay, the Wi-Fi, the device you saw is a Wi-Fi hub as well. It provides Wi-Fi and it's a 4-port hub. So let me show you another common scenario. So if you're closer, if you're around 3,500 feet today away from the DSL node, this is the service that I actually had received myself the last few years. It's 3010. The fiber service we're delivering is 2.5 times faster in download, still 7.5 times faster on upload. And what that means, if you look at the cost, is on an annual cost, if you leave this on, we're actually over $200 cheaper. Okay. And if you're comparing that to turning it on and off each year, which to be honest is a risk because you might not get a port some years, we're about $280 more expensive. Yes, so the question here, does the transfer for buying, selling a property include that $499 one-time hookup fee? Yes, that connect fee is for the property location. And we'll talk about why that's important. So, if you participated, your property is in there. If you turn service off, that's going to be noted with the property. So you're really making an investment that your house is included, and we'll offer our standard pricing on that house. The last comparison I'll give you is if you're able to get the fastest service today on DSL, which is a 5020. In this case, we're actually cheaper per year. We're half the cost per year, and we still provide 1.5 times the download speed and 3.75 times the upload speed. So in summary, we're about $900 a year, $75 a month, and that one-time fee can be displaced over there. So I'm going to take another question. Okay, so the question is, ignoring the connect fee and $75 a month, is $129 a month for the island is open? Why is it substantially better than upgrading to 5G smartphones with a hotspot? That's a great question. So one of the challenges on the island, and I've actually looked at using hotspots as our backups, we have very bad cell coverage on the island. And that's due to the trees and the topography and where the cell towers are located. The other thing of note is that 5G technology is designed to be used in urban areas with high density. It doesn't do as well in rural areas where we are in Maine. So while you'll see those towers upgrade, you're not going to see the 5G speeds that are advertised. Some people in specific spots of the island have great luck with hotspots. But there's also data caps there for hotspots. So if you're watching a lot of streaming TV, I wouldn't do a hotspot personally. So I'm going to go to so on the timeline question, I will get to that in a section and how we deal with that in a second. So what if you are the situation where you don't need better internet, you don't want internet on the island, but you want to be able to connect in the future? So you've got two choices. If your home is in the phase 1 area that's selected, you can choose to pay that home connect fee And we're basically going to give you the same prices as everybody else for the future because you've chosen to participate. If a home does not sign up to participate, we're not going to be able to guarantee that price. If we have to come and do a special build out for you in the future, you're most likely going to get charged the full cost. So look carefully if you want to participate. We're not trying to make this punitive, but at some level, if a lot of people choose not to participate, that increases the cost that gets carried by everybody else, and it raises the prices we have to charge everyone. So the best scenario is the most people participate and sign up, and therefore the prices can stay low. And we've had to make some assumptions about different take rates in order to get here. And the big thing we're launching now is getting people to sign up to really measure the interest and where that interest is on the island. So to summarize on the qualitative side, there's a few things that we're really going to be different than the incumbent ISP. First off is reliability. Fiber is way more reliable coming into your home than copper. We're going to have the appropriate battery backup and redundant power systems on that critical network gear. And we're going to have those multiple network paths, or that word we learned, backhauls off the island. Our support staff's also going to be different than the way Consolidate's on this. We're going to have an email and phone number that go directly to our island support manager and the people who are on call. You're not going to be going to some phone board that you've got to transfer to this group to find the classic group who knows that we even have service in Frye Island. That's not the situation. It's going to be much more small island service. We're going to have staffing on the island Saturday mornings on low seasons. And during the high season, we'll have people on call 7 days a week. And yes, we are going to be training support staff, and we will have openings for that as we roll out. Our goal is literally to have support a golf cart ride away. Okay. We're also going to do proactive monitoring. So literally, the person on call will know if someone's internet's down or there's a problem with a specific house, probably before you know. Okay, and be available to help you versus up waiting for you to call in to report a problem. So we think that's an important way to differentiate ourselves and to do things better. So I do want to talk about some unique challenges on the island. So great question in the chat. If you missed the first phases, no, we're going to introduce and explain the phases. That's what we're going to get to right now. And I'll also cover when we'll see installs start and be ready in a second. So the unique challenge the island has, it's only open for 6 months of the year, as we all know. And then staffing itself requires a novel approach. If you look at towns like Islesboro, they have a full-time employee that actually does this. And that really doesn't scale with our seasonal nature and everything else. And as looking at this as a company, the only way this works is to leverage skills we have available and do job sharing. So I have the skills of the core network operations and keep the core network running. Mike Yanson's going to be the on-island support manager, and he'll be able to manage hiring other young people to cover, provide the support on island, and have an escalation system. So when it's not something they can do, like unplug the router, reboot it, talk somebody through that, help them get their Wi-Fi password, and it needs additional assistance, it'll move up the chain to somebody who has more skills like myself or others. So the big thing we got to talk about is a thing called make ready. Okay, and this means this is the process to make the pole, make it ready for us to attach our line in the communication space here. Okay, so on the island today, there's only one company in this communication space that's Consolidated. On most poles you'll see off the island, there's 2 or 3. There's a cable company, there might be another fiber company. Okay, so what we have to do is work through the process, which is highly regulated, with timelines for CMP and Consolidated to follow, where they have to do work to make their poles ready for us to attach our gear to. And we pay them a lease fee to attach our gear, and we have rights through doing that. The problem with the island being closed is that this causes the clock to stop in their compliance. So we really only have a 6-month window to do something. Okay. And that if you look at the make ready timeline, if Consolidated and CMP, stick to the times they have to, it ends up being about 4.9 months. So it barely fits into a season. Okay. So that number becomes really important. And when we look at how we're going to do this, this drives what we're talking about for phasing. Okay. So the question is, why would Consolidate allow this? They're actually required by state law to allow other companies access the pole. So towns and municipalities provide easements to the incumbent carriers for their poles. And the state requires that they have a process that lets other companies place their gear on that pole. So we have to go through a process with them. We have to follow their safety standards and guidelines, but it's a highly regulated industry in all 49 states. And that's one of the things Tilson specializes in. So the other question is, if the poles go down in the future and everyone is on your platform, why would they repair them? It's a good question. So in the actual case, though, is Consolidated doesn't own the poles. We are verifying today that CMP owns the poles. And Consolidated is actually required to be the carrier of last resort, which means they have to continue offering you phone service. So Kevin's asking the question, why can't Consolidated offer the same service? They could. They don't have to agree to this. It's a question of investment. I don't want to speak for them, but if you read in the media where they're investing in Vermont and New Hampshire. And a seasonal island that's so small like this, it's a challenge to make it work. And that's why it's really important to have a large take rate. We'll talk about in a second. And if people wouldn't mind holding the questions, I'd like to get through the next section and then we'll get to the questions, okay? So why are we doing this in phases? So if we were to do the entire island, all the poles to get service to everyone, the number of poles goes above a threshold, and then Consolidated and CMP are allowed to add another 60 days to the timeline, okay? Which means it would never fit in a single year. They would delay a full year, and then the island would close, and then open up, and they have to delay a little further or through their timelines, get their stuff done, and then we'd be in this sort of sequence. So that means it'd be over 2 years to get anything built. And I don't know anybody here who wants to commit to some service or sign up for anything that's 2 years out in the future. The other reason to phase the project is with COVID and everything else going on in the world, there's currently limited availability of key fiber materials, specifically these fiber distribution hubs. They actually have a 9-month lead time. I've already purchased 2 of them, and they're actually supposed to arrive tomorrow. So we have the key equipment in place. That's when I said lining up all the pieces to make an announcement. There are a lot of these things that had to be sorted out to make sure it was logistically possible and at good enough certainty. So the third reason to phase it is time to market. It's very hard for people to sign up for a 2+ year project out in the future. So we wanted to be able to present something with the timeline of when we can deliver. So the 3 phases we're going to talk about. The 3 phases we're going to talk about are phase 0, which I'll show you in a second, which is a neighborhood demonstration that goes to roughly 25 homes, and it could provide service to the community center if the town wants that, which will let other people demonstrate and try out the service and see how it works. That's a ground-based phase. I'll show you a drawing of them in a second. Phase 1, the goal is roughly to do half the island. That would be completed in fall of 2021 or spring of 2022. We're being clear there's a range, because if Consolidated or CMP do not stick to the timeline they're required to in the process, it could delay things. So we're going to be clear there, and we make other things contingent upon when we get to certain thresholds and milestones. So phase 2, our goal will be to run about 6 months behind the start of this project, so they could actually run it concurrently. And that really depends on the take rate, and if there was any need to do grant funding for any areas that meet the definition of unserved, which is a whole other topic we'll save for the future. So this is phase 0. It's 4 nodes that are built with conduit and in the ground. This is the one I referred to that we built 50% of it last winter, or sorry, last fall. And it reaches basically 25 homes, and it could come up here to the community center if desired. It uses existing town right-of-ways, and also a number of neighbors and other given permission for their property to be crossed for the ground-based system. Okay, there's no poles going in, there's no tree cutting. This is literally running a 1-inch conduit that looks like another water pipe buried, that then provides service to 25 homes to demonstrate that this system will work and that people can try it out. Because people might be rightful to wonder, excuse me, can we really do this on the island? So let's talk about the timeline for the aerial phase. And I appreciate whoever keeps drawing on the screen to stop. So we're in April 2021. So with tonight, we're going to do is talk about the public announcement, and we're going to start 30 days of signups for the first phase. I'll show you what that means in a second. The low-level design and make-ready planning is already proceeding with Tilson. I was on conference calls with them today. They're proceeding with that and getting ready for the poll applications. In May, when we're all on the island, we should have 25 homes deployed and available to try this out. And then at that point, after we collect that data from 30 days, we'll analyze and figure out what the area one is and announce that. Throughout summer of 2021, the make-ready construction work, this can be CMP, replacing defective poles, moving any of the gear up or down, consolidating, moving the gear up or down to clear it. And then we believe either fall of 2021 or spring of 2022, we'd have the build out of phase one aerial done. We'd then install the devices at the homes and light up the fiber. And then phase two would be in 2022 based on the take rate. So let me talk about this thing about, well, I've used the term take rate. And this is the question you guys are all wondering, well, who's in phase one, who's in phase two? And I can't answer that today. It's really up to you guys for the first factor is the area selection is going to depend on the take rate. How many people sign up in a given area, okay? So you need to encourage your neighbors to sign up. You need to consider signing up, even if you don't want better internet today, you want to protect your property value, just do that connect fee. There are efficiencies of scales with these installs and build out. So we need to get to a certain take rate to make this work, okay? The second factor in where we go is cost structure. The number of poles, the number of homes, the miles of fiber. Some areas of the island are high density, almost urban, and some are really low density and rural with almost twice the cost per premise. So in some areas of the island, we need a higher take rate to make it feasible to build that out, okay? So the process we're starting is basically 30 days from the 10th of signups for 30 days of signups, and we're asking for a $100 deposit. We're going to measure the take rate for people signing up, making a $100 deposit to say they're interested. That's not the contractual obligation for a 1-year contract or 3 years. We'll show you in a second when that comes in. But it's about measuring interest. And to be honest, we've had so much interest that just an email sign up really isn't sufficient. We know you're interested. You have $100 in the game, that you're serious. You've thought about this, and you want to support. You want to support getting internet to your home, and it's something you're really interested in. So around May 15th, we'll announce the phase one project area. We'll also update the schedule based on where Tilson is with the polls and all the planning. We'll also update on the path forward for phase two, and of course offer refunds to people that are in phase two that were included. And that's a great question. The deposit is a credit towards the service. It's not money you're throwing away. It's the deposit towards the future service. So I got 2 slides left, and then we'll go to questions. I want to thank you all for your interest. That we've only been advertising this on Facebook for 5 days, and the level of interest is huge. I also want to thank the phase 0 neighbors. So far, the neighbors that I've spoken to out of the 25, everyone I've spoken to has 100% take rate. They want the service. I've only not reached 8 people in that group so far, and I apologize to those 8. I've been swamped trying to get this presentation together, and I will reach out shortly. And even some neighbors outside the phase 0 area are already asking. But the level of interest here is overwhelming. And really it shows it's going to be hard to figure out which areas we include and which areas we don't. But you guys got to give feedback. And to be honest, these online forms and deposits are going to be how we have to measure this. Someone can talk to me all day that they want service. I've got 539 people that dear. So we're going on the data. We're going on the data of who signs up, who's interested. But we're into hundreds of people who signed up for tonight. And we've got even more people who then emailed me to say that they won the recording, which will be made available. So the call to action, for those of you in the chat who are asking to sign up, SebagoWiFi.com/sign up. You guys are going to need to give me like 30 or 40 minutes to switch to the new website, which has all the information. I'll blast an email out to everyone that explains that process. The ask here, and this is the other slide, probably take a picture of if you want to share it. We're asking to sign up by May 10th, okay? So we're giving just over 30 days to get feedback. and to make the decisions. It's $100 a credit towards future service. We're going to fund it if we don't provide service to your home within 3 years, or if you ask, but we need some indication here besides clicking a button on your computer that said, give me your email address. You're going to influence which roads are in phase 1 and phase 2. So get that down there. Get that input in. Recruit your neighbors. Our intention also is to provide customers who sign up with a limited high-speed Wi-Fi at the community center or any other place. We can get the town or others to agree to hotspots to provide your service until it's available in your area. I gotta take a breath here. So the other part is about when does the contract come in. So basically 90 days before we do construction, we will send out an e-signature contract for you with the terms, the SLA, all those details. And at that point, we'll ask you to make payment of the connect fee. Okay. And you've got 3 options. You can go with a 0 connect fee and sign a contract for 3 years and put your payment information into the portal. You can pay the connect fee for $4.99, do a 1-year contract because you're not quite sure you want to commit to 3 years, perfectly fine. Or you can say, well, I don't really want internet, but I think this is valuable long-term. I want to pay the connect fee and get my property included. So I think that is the end of the slides. And I'm going to start questions and try to catch up in the chat here. So the service level agreement. I'm not going to comment on the exact number of 9s in the SLA if you're being that IT specific at this point. Our intention is to have multiple backhauls off the island. If people want to get that specific on SLA level agreements, we can talk offline to go into that detail. But our goal is to have high availability with multiple paths off the island. So Steve, option 1, 2 seem like a wash. What's the anticipated rate increase for years 2 and 3? What we've modeled so far is just increases at the average CPI cost around 2.5% is what we predict year over year. There can be adjustments in bandwidth costs that could cause things to change. So if you want to lock the rate in for 3 years, you could do that. That's really a choice at this point. And we'll give, the model will be moving forward that every year we give you sort of update in the fall of what the rates will be for the next year if you're off contract, so you have that information. So someone asked, considering take rate, many houses are very close together. Have you considered the finances if centrally located houses are getting a wireless router and splitting the cost with their neighbors to share the internet? Not everyone needs Netflix. Many come to the island to escape, just desire basic activity. So our service agreements, as does Consolidated's, do not allow you to resell residential level service. Commercial level service can be resold or split amongst houses. So if people start taking our service and splitting it to 4 houses, this isn't going to work, to be honest. If everybody did that, it wouldn't occur. So what is clear is areas that have a large number of houses. If multiple people sign up, that area could be included in phase 1. But if you're looking for just basic level internet that you're willing for it to go out, you don't have to do work, you don't care if it's reliable, I'd say that DSL is still an option there. So what is the minimum of households we need to make this work financially? So Tim, that's not a question I'm going to answer directly because it goes into confidential parts of the business model. But I'll give you some ranges of take rates in the industry. So the conservative take rates in the industry are around 15%. For a project, you sort of do worst case. The best take rates you see in the industry are around 60%. We're somewhere in the middle, and it really depends on where you are on the island. Some areas have very high density, and we don't need as high of a take rate to make it work. Other areas, there are 8 poles to get to 2 houses, and we need a number of take rate. So someone asked, how long will $75 a month be valid? That's the price for signing up during this enrollment period that goes into the signing up for the service starting the fall or the spring. So great question. What's the backup in case something happens to you? So I'll give you some examples of how I deal with this in my 2 other jobs. So in my day-to-day job at HCL, there is literally a plan written for disaster recovery and what happens if Andrew gets hit by a bus. A manager who works for me knows that, and just do 3 or 4 other people. of how does that business keep running. I apply the same thing to the town. There's an email from me to the IT director of Cumberland County saying, what happens if Andrew gets hit by a bus? And he has access to run that system backup. I will build the same type of contingency plan for this, for the company. And most likely, if they aren't able to find local people to do the service, the company structure would change and they would contract out to another ISP to provide the services if I was no longer alive or able to do the service. Privacy policy, great question. We're going to be same as every other ISP. We're not going to be storing information. We do have to comply with all the relevant laws there. I'll do a more complete answer for that once we have a draft of the privacy policy, but we're not going to be looking at your traffic. We don't want the liability of looking at your traffic or anything about that. I guess a former IBMer is asking this question. What level of network security do you support P-certs? So there's a number of aspects of security compliance. We actually already have set up to be contracted out. And then, we'll of course be upkeeping the firmware to deal with all P-certs up to date. So question, your corporate structure is LLC, who are the principals? Who are the principals? So I am the principal, myself, my family, that's the only principal involved. If it fails before the deposit's escrowed, yes, we'll return your deposits. So the next question is, so as an LLC is a private for-profit company, I think we all understand and appreciate you've put a lot of work in this, but all the margin profits go into your pocket. I wish there were margins or profits to go into my pocket. We modeled this extensively, and there's no point that I can take a salary out of this until probably year 11. So any returns on this is really long-term. And whether it's a public company or something else, someone else has to be involved in that. To give you an idea of the level of investment, when I engaged Tilson this fall with the work I'd already done, they estimated it would have taken the town around $350,000 to get to the point where I started engaging on the project. So other people are free to find another solution. This is the one I'm presenting. It is an LLC structure, and I'm the principal owner. Is there a data cap? Nope, there's no data cap. You saw the rates there that we described. Those are so we will have, rates in place for protecting the rate. So 75 megabits per second would be basically, we'd throttle limit you from like 75 to 90 megabits per second to guarantee that service. So the question is so the question is running a business on the island. We're not running a business on the island. We aren't going to have an office or a place for service. We're not going to have traffic. That's really not an issue under the town zoning. Our place of business is not going to be on the island. We're going to be just like Consolidated or another ISP. We're going to have equipment on the poles and throughout the island infrastructure with appropriate agreements in place. But I'm not going to have people coming to my home to do service related to this. So will non-participating taxpayers be responsible in any part of the phase or installments or service outages? So there's no taxpayer involvement in the project as proposed today. That required the town or the selectmen to get involved, and we've not requested any funding or assistance from the town at this point. We're looking at phase 1 to build what we can commercially viable, only private investment. So question, 75 months for 12 months. Can you turn off the season or are you locked in for 75 months for all 12 months when not in use? As we propose the surface, it's for 12 months. So we looked at offering the service for a higher price for like 6 months and then give you an option to keep on the winter. And we priced that out, and then we looked at that compared to other places that did seasonal service. And what happens is the price per month for seasonal service becomes so high, people don't sign up, okay? And then you basically have a small number of people paying a lot more, and it doesn't work out. So we went with a structure that's an annual contract, and try to keep the price lower and more level. And to be honest, when we look at the operational expenses and how to give good service, having the service on before people get to the island and having it stay on the whole year is much easier to support. If there's damage or installs, we bring contractors that are out for planned work, beginning of the season, end of the season. We're not doing it every other week, every other day, and the scheduling cost overhead. So question, after a 1-year sign up, we love it. So now we want a 3-year contract. We'll discuss how those work there, but yes, we want longer commitments as possible. Question, can you please go back to Tim's first question about 219 homes? So 219 homes are without internet and absolutely cannot get it or just don't have it. So that's a question about Consolidated's network. They have a limit of only 320 homes can get service. Not everyone on the island wants internet, and we know that. There's some people who come to the island who want to be completely disconnected. To be honest, I wish I could be one of them. So there are 219 homes that if they went to ask, 100% of people on the island want internet, they could not get it. Right now, it's balancing. One of my hopes is that if we get the 25 people up on the demo network, that frees up capacity in this north area of the network, which the north and central area, which has no ports available. So if 25 people get onto our network, 25 people can use Consolidate for a year or two. A question, will having the service increase our tax rates? No, there's as proposed, there's no involvement of the town. There's no contribution or subsidy from the town anyway. Question about DSL required landline. Can we now switch to VoIP to replace the landline? Yes, so you could use a third-party voice over IP service. I've already looked at providing a voice over IP service as part of this. Most likely, we will not roll that out like for the phase 0. We will look at this for phase 1. We know there's a lot of people that only really want to deal with one vendor. You don't want to have your phone line with one company and then have to worry separately about your internet with another. So our plan is we would integrate voice over IP. I just don't want to share the details of the pricing over that. But voice over IP is much more cost effective. So when would phase 1 participants start paying their monthly fee was the earliest time that could happen. So if we go back to, this, so the simplest answer is that if you have Consolidated right now, unless you're in phase 0, you're gonna need to keep Consolidated for probably this season. The first time, so 90 days before construction, we're gonna ask you for that connect fee, and then the first monthly payment would start when the service is lit up or enabled and continue from that point forward. Question, any repairs during off season if needed? If not, any fee adjustment for extended outages? So in the operating plan and budget, we carry budget for maintenance, for repairs, all that's been modeled out. So we don't anticipate having to pass those type of fees on to the end user. It's a good question because both Consolidated and CMP have been passing on additional bandwidth fees and repair fees to customers recently. There's a lot of discussion and actions on that. We built a budget that reflects the maintenance costs of fiber based on Tilson's experience and the costs of real world projects. And to be honest, Faber has a much lower maintenance cost. The probability of actually a tree coming down and take this out, it would have to take out the power lines, Consolidated, and then us. So next question. So if one is paying for a year on service, the power line goes down in the middle of the winter, how are you going to be able to service the outage without ferry or ice? So that's really a question. We'll have service up when power is up. So we'll have backup power systems. We'll deal with small outages. If the town chooses to fix power on the island and provide that service, then service will be up. But this is really not in our control. And I think that question is really more relevant for the town board or the town manager as to how the town deals with this. In general, from my experience, past a certain point in the fall, in December, the power goes out, it could stay out. But one thing I will mention is most of the outages that occur, at least this recently, have been outages on the Raymond Cape Road that they're able to restore and return power. Outages on the island are actually less likely to occur after the pole make-ready work because we've replaced all these poles to the 1950s and 60s. And that could be expensive for the company, but that's one thing we've budgeted and considered. What happens if we don't get approval? Unlikely, but there's roadblocks. Of course, anything that happens that stops the project will return your deposits. Other than fixing the problem, you're not getting much out of it. Have you given thought to having some municipality run? I looked at whether this should be done by the town. To be honest, the town has no specific advantages to do this. All the knowledge and skill to do this comes personally from me and my experience. So we've modeled as an LLC. If it doesn't work out, I'll convert it to a nonprofit. If it works out, then it'll be worth my time. But I need to solve this problem either way because I'm planning to live on Fry Island. Why is phase 0 underground? Could other areas also be buried? So the reason phase 0 is underground is it's a relatively small area. We've been able to leverage some existing conduit that's on my property already. And we can reach about 25 homes without a huge amount of conduit. To be honest, this will probably prove why we don't want to do it underground anywhere else. Fry Island has a lot of rocks. The other real reason in discussing with this with the town in the past, with DPW directors, learning the history of this from John Crosby, the town actually proposed previously, or John Crosby proposed to run a second conduit around the entire island when they did the water system. That would have been brilliant. That would have made this much more cost effective. It would have eliminated the make ready process, but that didn't happen. So at this point, when we looked at modeling doing it buried, the reality is the town doesn't know exactly where the water lines are. So we would risk in construction damaging the town water system at every turn, and then we'd have our conduit in the way of the town working on their water systems. So that's just not viable. It interferes with our dirt roads too much. So we're going with aerial based. To your earlier point, about 5G in urban areas, what happens to your company if a major carrier puts a tower on the edge of the mainland 5 years from now? That is a business risk, but you're never going to see. So having a background in electrical engineering, I can tell you there's never enough bandwidth in the air, in radio waves, to make up the same amount that you get in a bundle of fiber. So fiber is always going to deliver you more bandwidth, lower latency, and scale. So yes, there is a risk that someone could do that type of service. But if you look at the areas that 5G is being deployed, and you also look at the topography of the island, our island's hilly enough that it blocks the signals. The town manager could talk to you about radios, and I've looked at this with them. There's just a lot of dead spots. So fiber is really the best solution here. I'm going to take a breath. Are there any other questions? So a question, can we get a copy of the presentation? My intention is to take the recording of tonight. We're going to go through all the questions, put them in an FAQ, and then we're going to also put the presentation or the recording of the session, the info session on the website, and go from there. So this is a great question. Can we promise to tell our kids that Wi-Fi doesn't work and kick them outside? That's actually one of my thoughts. We will work and have a way that you can easily, safely disable your Wi-Fi to send the kids outside button. Yes. So it may not be as just like the commercial for, I think Comcast or Spectrum has the stop button, but we'll have an easy way that you can make that happen. So question about phase 0. Will phase 0 eventually go aerial or will stay underground? It will go aerial. When we come back through that area and we have permission to go to the poles, we will change it to aerial to be consistent, and then we will pick up the gear that we've installed and any conduit or other things working with the town. So question about Starlink. So Starlink is actually already rolled out in the area. I've had discussions with other people. Starlink is great in areas where you have a clear sight line. Starlink requires about 180 degrees of your horizon to be clear. And most of our homes on the island have a lot of trees. And I really hope people don't cut down or hurt their trees to get Starlink. I think our fiber solution is a much better option. So hopefully I've answered the Starlink. We have priced this aware of Starlink to be cheaper, more cost effective, and we believe it'll deliver the bandwidth needed long term. Starlink is really focused on rural areas that have no other options, and the entire middle areas of the country that are rural, that don't have the number of homes where we are. It'll be a great option, but it's not a good match for Fry Island with our trees. So for someone to go in and out because of their kids, so the timeline to make a decision or commitment, I'll go back to that slide. So we're entering the 30-day period here from now till May 10th to make a decision. And that's only requires you to put down $100 to say, hey, you're interested, you want to be included. Past that point, then we'll define the phase 1 area. 90 days out before construction is when we'll email out the contracts and the payments and move forward from there. Can Consolidate prevent you from accessing the polls? No, they cannot prevent us. They can make it difficult. They can make it expensive. They can delay us. This is why I've engaged Tilson, who's done this many, many times with Consolidated in Maine. It's not something I'm going to try to do myself. I've hired someone with the experience to manage the make-ready process, do those negotiations, and get it done. And they give me conservative dates, which is why I've said to you guys, best case is fall. It could go out to spring of 2022. A good point. Starlink is charging $99 per month, which is higher than our base service. Availability of federal and state grants. So I've looked at this heavily. This is really a topic that belongs to the town, not to the private company. So I'd really, if there's an interest in federal or state grants, that's something you take up with the town through the board and the town manager. And of course, I will assist with that, or as best I can. I have a lot of knowledge in the area, but the company that I'm running cannot apply for those without the town participating and being part of that. When does phase 0 start? So phase 0 will start as soon as we can get on the island and we get some other blockers resolved. So if you're in phase 0 and you want to get unblocked, reach out to me and let others know that you're excited about it. Was there an option to run fibers to the house now and pay the connect fee, but not subscribe to the service until desired? Yes. So this is the option to protect your home. You pay the $4.99 home connect fee. That will guarantee you're included. Whether we run the cable to you now or in the future, either way, we've included you in the planning, we've included you in the build out, and it locks your cost in so you don't have a connect fee. You just start paying for service and you get it. So that's really a good way to protect your home's value and investment. Where might other hotspots be besides community center? So that's really up to discussion with the town, and I have to disqualify myself from making those decisions. That has to be discussed with the town manager. It's really of where do we have service. If our initial phase 1 includes town buildings or other locations, then we'd look at putting hotspots there. And if people have signed up, you'd have access to those hotspots as well. Thank you for feedback. Has there been any talk about hotspots on all public beaches? The build out design that we did include fiber capacity to every beach, but that's a decision the town would have to make if they wanted service there. Most of our beaches don't have power or the other parts of the infrastructure needed. And that's really a question for the town as far as it could change the character of the beaches by having people there on the phone. So I'm not the right person to answer that question. but we did design the capacity in there for every major town properties. Any other questions? So if there's no more questions, what I will do is work to put the new website live, blast out an email. The sign up sheet will be there. There's a secure payment site, which I can actually show you guys. So this is the full version of the website, which has all the pricing information on it for annual service and the different pricing options. If you click sign up, it's going to take you to the sign up page. We want your name, your lot number, your street address. I'm double, quadruple checking your submissions for lot numbers and street addresses to make sure people have it right. We have the right location, verifying it. We'd like an email and phone number. Tell us what level of service you'd like. Do you want to do a 3-year with no connection fee, or spreading the connection fee out over the 3 years? Do you want to pay 1-year connection fee, or you don't want any services time, but you want to pay the $4.99? Or tell us you're not sure yet, you have questions, and we'll talk over the next period of time. And then we ask you to put a $100 deposit here. And this is a secure payment being hosted by Stripe. So the question about lot number, E number. So I'll clarify this again. So your lot number is that usually 4-digit number that's unique to the island. Your street address is always your E911 number plus your street name. And if I know people have had trouble with this from submissions so far, we'll help clarify that. Lot number is not the emergency number. Lot number is the number on your tax bill or on any moorings or your golf cart. The E911 number is your street address. So we really want to stop saying E911 number. We just want to say street address, you know. So I'll keep taking questions. We might be done. Okay, what's the question? So the job, so that's really a question. The question was, does Mike have time for both jobs? So you can ask Mike that, but we're very conscious of his time. His role here is in managing and scheduling people. So, you know, that's, you know, and then the off seasons, Mike is picking up some of the support. And I think he's not doing as much of his other yard work business. But please direct that question to Mike and we'll act appropriately. Question, I assume you're running the primary fiber chunk along Raymond Cape. Have you thought of providing this there as a week of volume? I don't understand the question. We're not running new fiber on Raymond Cape Road or providing service. We have contracted with an ISP above us that provides that backhaul capability. And then we can use dark fiber from that same one to provide us multiple ISPs. Oh, sorry, I now understand. Have I thought of providing service along Raven Cape to increase the volume? It probably wouldn't be competitive there. On Raymond Cape Road, there's Comcast Spectrum cable TV, which most people use. We have that at the town ferry trailer. So there are 2 providers, and in most of those areas on the mainland, Comcast is the dominant internet provider in those areas. And people choose Comcast over Consolidated in those areas. So no, I don't think we would enter that market and compete against Consolidated. That wouldn't make sense. So I'll just remind people, the most important thing is to sign up. Literally, we need to see where on the island people want service, so we can figure out phase one. I'm optimistic that we can get over half the people in phase one, but we need that data, and this is data driven. So sign up on the website, sign up form, and let us know. Question is Comcast running down Raymond Cape Road. What prevents them from servicing the island? They have never expressed interest to come out here to the island. They also traditionally do not use any of their competitors' fiber or other technologies. They own everything they use. So they would, in their model, they would build a cable to the island, which is cost prohibitive. Pretty much the fact that we're seasonal and we're 500 or so homes makes us this niche micro ISP that you really have to optimize. And them, like most businesses, they don't want to deal with the service of sending someone out to the island, which is why we are doing things differently. We're doing annual service. We're leveraging some people already on the island to provide the immediate support, and have to do things differently. Got 59 people left, so either people are waiting to see other people's questions, or they left their laptops open.
Andrew, did you want me to unmute?
Sure, Jay, how's it going?
All right, how are you doing? Good to see you, and we'll see everybody else in a couple of weeks. I put my comment in the chart. I just think that there's never been more people on the island than there are right now, and there's never been more people working from home than there are right now, and Consolidated they're at capacity. They're not going to increase the service to our island in a way that's going to meet demand. So, I mean, I can't imagine not doing this with an option. And so we're in. I mean, I mailed you my check this week, and we're in. And if just getting in opens up a slot for somebody else on Consolidated's board, good for them. But it's going to get worse, not better with them.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you for your support. Are there any other questions? We have about 48 people still on the call. Amy? Fine. At this point, we're below 50 people, so people want to ask questions on audio. We'll go ahead and do that. I think we can manage that at this point.
Hey, Andrew. Yeah, I'm here. I just wanted to ditto what Jay just said. We're in, we mailed our check, and I think it's all awesome.
Thank you so much, Amy. So someone else just raised their hand and wanted to talk. I'm trying to find them. Question, if you have multiple homes on the island, we need to fill out the deposit twice for both homes. I would say yes, because we're trying to measure the commitment. Some people have a primary home they want it for and a rental. It's not a lot of money, and we'd really like, given the amount of data, people to fill out the form for each property because we need the data. And we wanted, we're going to validate the ones that people have put down $100 as it's done. They're included in the analysis. The people that don't put a deposit, we're going to reach out and answer any questions they have. But at the end of 30 days, we're going to look at who's there. Similarly with the businesses and the town facilities, they need to make their own decisions independent of me of do they want service or not, which will impact whether or not they're included in phase one. Any other questions in the chat, or people want to raise their hand? And I'm glad to go back to other slides if people have questions or anything. So. So question, I had a hard time understanding the map, but I'm on lot 1963 of horrible service and ridge. Is that in one of the phases? So the phases are not defined yet. So on ridge down here, you can see past this point, the service gets really bad. The service drops off. So we haven't picked yet who's in phase 1 or who's in phase 2. That's what happens over the next 30 days as you sign up and put down a $100 deposit to tell us you're interested. And that's what determines, at that point, we'll determine the phases based on the take rate, which is the number of people signed up, and the cost in the area. So the most important thing is to sign up, talk to your neighbors, get them to sign up so we know who's interested. And that's what's going to determine what's in the phases. And then we'll do an update of what's in the phase. And if you're not in phase 1, we'll be glad to return the deposit at that point. But we'll at least have the data that you're interested. Okay. So then we know for phase 2 what the take rate is, and we figure out how to plan for phase 2, and we'll start that planning in parallel. So does option 3, which I believe is $499. Let me go to that slide. It's $499 upfront and no service, lock into any price levels, or will there be elevated rates for people signing up after the fact? So if you spend that $499, we're going to treat you as participating, and you'll get the current prices that year for new service, which won't have a penalty for the fact that you didn't sign up. If someone doesn't sign up at all and 10 years down in the future, they say, I want service now, we're going to look at the actual cost to build out to the home. And then we'll also look at, okay, what did it cost us to have that fiber sitting there? So we really want you to participate now, even if it's just doing that $499 to cover it. It makes a big difference in understanding what's included. And, what we don't want to do is have to raise prices to have all your neighbors pay for the fact that these homes did not sign up or participate. So this is a great question. If people were not on Facebook, how can they find out about this program? So my first ask to all of you is to please tell your neighbors. We are going to do, I believe we're going to work to do a direct mailing now that we've announced this, and we'll mail out to people's home addresses, most likely. We don't have a good way to advertise on the island. We are following all the restrictions on what businesses can and cannot do. And if you're not familiar, there's really no good ways for businesses to advertise on the island, and we're going to respect that. So we're going to have flyers at the store, thanks to Amy and Dave, that give people information, and we're going to do a mailing. And then I really want to ask all of you to tell your neighbors. If you know somebody's not on Facebook, shoot them an email, tell them. We're going to have a website up. We're trying to respect people's privacy and really not direct mail them. I already feel guilty for posting on Facebook so much as we did, and thank the administrators of the Facebook groups for allowing us to do that, to get the program out there. But Facebook was the fastest way to get the initial message out. Now at this point, hopefully it's known. We'll have info on the board when the island opens by the store. We'll have some info in the store, and then please tell your neighbors. if there's no more questions, it's 9 p.m. and we're right on schedule. Last call for questions, 1 minute left. So thanks for the comments, and I'm glad that the connect fee structure makes sense. And yes, the past minute people not on Facebook, and I appreciate a number of you reached out to me and messaged me today saying we need to reach people not on Facebook, and we're going to work towards that. I think the best way this project works, honestly, is going to be people talking to their neighbors that they want this to happen, and signing up, and because it's really going to work best if there's a large commitment from the community. And then we can, move much more quickly. More people sign up, the faster we get to phase 2. Low sign up makes phase 2 harder. So really the best thing to do is people sign up, and I'm open to suggestions. Reach out to me by email, the Sebago Wifi.com email address that you received an email from. And we'll work to reach everyone. Okay, we're down to 18 people. I think we're going to wrap it up. Thank you, everyone, so much. Thank you to all the neighbors in phase 0. Thank you to everybody who signed up and came tonight. And thank you for all your help in the future. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.